Olá, amigos, bem-vindos. Aqui é Bruno Benigno, direto do Congresso, do 38º Congresso Europeu, aqui direto de Milão. E é um grande prazer poder falar com o Dr. Ashish Kamat, um dos formadores de opinião mundial e uma autoridade no tratamento do câncer de bexiga. Welcome, Dr. Ashish. Thank you very much for your kind acceptance in your time. So, I saw your presentation, many presentations before, and we see a great problem with BCG shortage in Brazil and all over the world. And you are one of the leaders in this field, moving from the BCG era to another evolution in terms of treatment. Do you see that immunotherapy will really going to challenge BCG in the way we want? And do you think that chemotherapy is still going to have a place in the years forward as we move in this scenario of understanding more the immune system and how things work in bladder cancer?
Absolutely. So the BCG shortage is a real problem for everybody, as you know. And the problem with BCG is that it works really, really well if it's used appropriately. But it is an older therapy. There's not enough BCG in the world, so our patients need something else. To answer your first question, immunotherapy, again, BCG is immunotherapy, as you know, but you mean systemic immunotherapy with IO inhibitors are unlikely to work as well as BCG without BCG. So again, we need the trials to report out. The trials might surprise us, but currently the thinking is that just the immunotherapy, systemic immunotherapy, will likely not be better than BCG. And if it's equivalent, then the toxicity might not be something that patients are willing to tolerate. Again, that's just a hypothesis and supposition, but we need the results of the clinical studies, of course. The other question you asked is chemotherapy, and that's a much more pressing and a much more relevant issue. Combination chemotherapy with gemcitabine and docetaxel already is shown signs of being as good as BCG in retrospective studies, and that's why the prospective study that has currently been launched, it's a non-inferiority study comparing gemcitabine and docetaxel with BCG, will provide, I think, enough proof that people will be more comfortable using that, especially when you don't have BCG available.
So, and moving forward, and in another scenario, I would like to hear your thoughts about the new eras, the new kinds of drugs like ADCs that are coming in the bladder cancer field. And as we know, in prostate cancer, in bladder cancer, the new drugs come in the more advanced scenarios, and then naturally moving in upfront scenarios. How do you see the field moving in this direction, and do you see that these new drug developments will be shorter in the hands of urologists or in the oncologist's hands? What do you think?
I think the time has come for urologists and medical oncologists to work together as a team. But that being said, most bladder cancer patients see the urologist. They see us. Most bladder cancer patients are non-muscle invasive. Less are muscle invasive, and even less are metastatic. And the ADCs are a perfect example of a smart bomb, right? Anti-drug conjugate that has shown efficacy in second-line setting, is now shown efficacy in cisplatin-eligible first-line setting, and is moving ahead earlier and earlier in different phases of the disease. We're actually conducting a trial using intravesical enfortumab vedotin. And clearly, intravesical therapy is something that urologists will be doing. Medical oncologists don't want to do intravesical therapy. So we, as urologists, urologic oncologists, have to be very aware of ADCs, of IOs, of all these treatments, because ultimately the patients want to be treated by the same urologist that is doing the cystoscopies, doing the biopsies, etc. And we certainly have to adopt these therapies in the earlier stages.
Perfect. And my last question is for urologists that are watching us. And what your thoughts about the bladder preservation therapy, especially trimodal therapy? Do you think that immunotherapy will play an important role in this field? What are your thoughts about this?
So trimodal therapy is one of those things that is often talked about in many different circles, and it's very important to get the patient perspective. right? Because ultimately we're doing this for the patients. When it comes to non-muscle invasive bladder cancer, early stages, traditionally trimodal therapy has not been considered an option, and a lot of reasons for that. Again, secondary cancers, we see more non-muscle invasive cancers in patients that get radiation for prostate cancer, for example. But more recently, because radiotherapy has an immune stimulatory effect, and you have IO therapy, there has been a resurgence in interest in combining radiotherapy with different forms, sometimes lower dose than previous, with IO therapy, either together or sequential. And in fact, the ADAPT study compares it with BCG, for example, with or without Durva. So these are interesting studies. Again, it's a data-free zone right now. We need the results before we can make any commitment, but it certainly is an option if you have access to the clinical trials to recommend to patients to consider.
So, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So, obrigado, meus amigos, pela atenção, and I hope to see you soon in Brazil, because I know that you're going to be there for one of our meetings, and thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Bye.